Welcome back to Prof E Plays. I'm Prof E, and we're picking up again with the story of Wilbur Orla and his friends Garrett Damocles and Hazel Perrin. Perrin, that's it. I can remember her name. And we are, if you may recall, we were using uh, foreshadowing, right? We were using playing solo classic traveler available from Zozer Games right here, but I'm changing that in this episode for a couple reasons. One being I originally started this because this was a free option that was available to you. It no longer is. There like this version is no longer available. There is now a new version available that is in the little black book um, format, but it's like $3 or something like that. So, just in terms of keeping with things that you can actually get hold of, I'm not going to be using this. Uh, and that was something that happened recently. I want to say by the time that this airs, it was probably like a month ago, maybe, there was that change. So, that is going away. So instead, I have also been keeping an eye on and had a couple commenters over time suggesting going with the full blown solo product that is available from Zoser Games. So I finally caved and bought the thing. And it's very cool. It has lots of new elements in it. And one of the features of it is that it has a number of different campaign styles that you can choose from in order to play your game. And good news, one of those campaign styles is Travelers, right? So all I did was I just printed out. It's only like 4 pages from the book, so I printed out as this little half page fold thing, um, to give me everything that I would need from that. In addition, all of the random tables that are available in Cepheus Universal are also available in this book, as well as a couple other ones. Right, so I printed out the random tables, which is going to make it a lot easier for me to refer to those as well. In addition, on their website, they actually have available from Zoser Games the quick reference sheets. You can actually get those. You can download those for free if you wish. Um, they're available there, as are all of their fill-in pages as well for the different things. So I thought this sounds kind of cool. Right, so I'm still going to follow some of the structure from the original in terms of the path that I am following. So right now, what I am doing is I am making my way toward the capital of the subsector, which right now we're going to be opening up with our party having traveled from Zilianus to Batesiotun, or something like that. Batesiotun right here, which is it's a poor desert planet. It does not have any kind of spaceport there or anything. There are, however, gas giants in the system, so we will probably be stopping by there for a little bit as we retool or what have you. But there really isn't much reason for us to spend much time here, right? So there's also very little population. It's one of those. It's just a few there. Then we'll be continuing along our path right through this what is it system where we have asteroids, and then finally Masuyama, the capital. In the capital, you'll be getting our ship, and then we're going to decide what we're going to do from there on. So that's that. I'm debating between whether I want it to be continuing to play this as a traveler campaign and following that campaign style, or transitioning it over to a Star Trader campaign and then having that be the style instead. They're very similar in some ways. I think that the traveler campaign style is just a little bit more free form as far as that goes. Right, so trade-offs as far as that goes, but I'm still at least a few sessions away from that at this point. Right, so we're going to be following a new structure then because of switching over. There's a lot of overlap between this, after all, it's the same author, Paul Elliott, made both of these things, right? So, but there's, I think, a lot more meat, I think I would say here. From what I've read, I have not finished reading the entire book, but I've read kind of the introductory chapters, and from what I've read of those, one thing that I really like about this is that it made me rethink of some of the way that I think I've been drifting in my play. Uh, is it says instead of thinking like you're doing a simulation in a sci-fi setting, think like you are a director of a sci-fi movie or TV series or something like that. So you are a combination director slash lead actor, and that changes the way that you would approach this. So I think that that's an interesting point. All right. So in any case, we are currently en route, right, to Tune. So let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm hopping into this. They have a wonderful checklist for each of the campaign types, and then just a few pages of whatever additional material you need. Just to give you a quick preview of this. So the checklist includes, right, kind of two elements. One is when you're on the planet, what you do. This involves, right, rolling for patrons, enemies, colorful locals as directed by world encounters, and then making task rolls, creating a plan. Creating a plan is very much like the mission machine, although some of the details of the mechanics are a little bit different. So you'll see that whenever we have the plan. Another thing that I like about the solo supplement is that it's a bit more flexible in terms of the different ways that you can resolve things. It's very explicit about offering different options, which I think is cool. Like, for example, it has a yes no oracle, which is not available in the playing solo classic traveler, at least not the old edition of it that I was using. Okay, so on planet activity, right? So we have a world encounters table that we roll on every week. We roll for patrons, enemies, or colorful locals as directed. Make task rolls, create a plan as necessary, and then if some notable activity or location beckons, send the PCs out there, make encounter rolls as needed, be prepared to create a plan. Remember to check for reaction at key moments. So that's another thing here is that there are more tools available for developing the relationships and the specific behaviors and consequences of plans and the like. So a lot of cool tools here. So definitely thank you to those viewers that recommended this. It's neat stuff. I look forward to seeing how it actually works, and you'll see, right, how I use it successfully or not. Okay. Then, as you jump from world to world, we have starport encounters, which makes sense if there's a starport. If you have cargo, you need to check for whether there's a starship available that can carry your cargo. Sort out any costs and fees involved and board the starship. Then you roll for a starship encounter. Roll on the passenger ship events table for an event. Make a reaction roll for the group during jump space. How are they feeling about one another? I don't know how relevant that's going to be given that we're going to be in cryobirths. So, you know, in any case, but this is something to think about. Enter a new system, roll in the Starship Encounters table, roll in the Starport Encounters table as you get to the new starport, and then spend a week on the planet between ships doing on-planet activities. So that's kind of the structure of it. Um, I don't know why I felt a need to rattle that all off, but there it was. Okay, so what we are doing now, we are currently arriving at Basioton. The first thing we need to do as we arrive is they're going to start taking us out of cryosleep. Now we know that this is not going to be a problem for Garrett or for Hazel because their endurance scores are high enough that when they get medical assistance, and we make the assumption that they do get medical assistance, uh, we know they're going to wake up. Wilbur, not so confident because even though he gets medical assistance, we still need to hit 8 plus. Oh, no, no, I'm sorry. It's 6 plus, and it's a plus 4, but he naturally has a minus 1. So there is the possibility if we roll a 2, so if we roll Snake Eyes, we lose, and Wilbur is dead. That's, that's the risk of flying cheap. That's the truth. All right. So fortunately, a 10 is quite far from a 2. So we succeed with flying colors and actually revive. Okay, good. Good, good, good. Okay, so we arrive here at Tune. So we need to know a little bit about this planet. So I did this off camera as I've been doing with each of these episodes, trying to figure out what is the next planet going to be like. So what we know about Tune, right, is it's a smallish planet, somewhere between the size of, say, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Because it's not as small as Mars, but it is certainly smaller than Earth. It has zero point 0.7 Gs is kind of the standard surface gravity you'd expect to find. The atmosphere is very thin with a pressure of zero point 0.1 to 0.42 atmospheres, right? So it's not breathable without some kind of survival mask. So that is something you have to have. In addition, it is a desert planet. There is no water on the surface of this planet. So, thinking through this, uh, so with very little atmosphere, no water, that means we're probably going to have a very rough terrain. this is going to be hard for us to land on. So I'm not sure whether we're going to land. I mean, knowing about the population here, there are very few people. There, there's no government at all. It's in fact an anarchic society, but there are only a few people. So I mean, it's like I don't have a government in my household, right? So I'm not really that worried about it. There's a low law level. Law level is 3, so there might be some kind of something like law enforcement here, but it's not going to show up very often. Technically, heavy weapons are banned. In terms of the local tech level, it is something in like the late 1900s, 1970 to 2000 or so. Like my childhood is what it would be like. In terms of travel codes, it's a desert planet. It is also poor. Uh, it has a sufficient level of law that that is not considered a dangerous area in terms of amber travel zones or anything like that. So, in terms of description, this is what I wrote up for it. It is no water, no life, very thin atmosphere. Few settlers on this planet were looking to escape the oppression of Matsuyama. Matsuyama, we know, has a very high law level, is extremely strict as far as that goes, and have succeeded. The cost is that to stay under the radar, they have very little. So I'm imagining something like in, say, modern society, how the Amish live, right? They're like, in some sense off the radar. Um, People are certainly aware of them, but they're not exceptionally wealthy in material terms for the most part. I guess with the exception of the ownership of land. Okay. All right, so that is the world that we have. So we get brought out of cryosleep. Now, I think that given the nature of things, there is still the possibility, I think, of there being some kind of starship encounter. So I'm going to roll for that on the starship encounters table. Now, with starship encounters, the odds of there even being a starship for us to encounter are affected by the type of starport we have, or in this case, the lack of starport that we have here. So I'm going to roll on that. So it is a 2d6 roll. I'm on a frontier route, and I'm going to add a -1 to this because it's an X class starport. So that would come up to a 9. So there is actually a, a ship of some kind that we are encountering on the frontier table. Yeah, there's a little discontinuity there as my son. I sometimes record in the garage, as you can tell. I mean, you can see the water softener over my shoulder here. Um, Sometimes my son will come out here to play with his VR, because it's the area that has the most space in which he can move around. Um, so the door with this VR goggles on, pretty great. Okay, in any case, so the frontier table is what we're going to be rolling on. So let me find the frontier table. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's a 3d6 roll. Oh, I need to get another d6 out. Normally don't need that many. Here, there's another cool black one. So the black, white, and technically this is a light green. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and roll this. We'll see what kind of frontier ship we are. Add it all up. We've got 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 would be a surveyor of 400, so it's a 400-ton surveying ship. So the question is, what is its reaction going to be to us? So here we go. With it being a surveyor, that would be considered a frontier ship, certainly. All right, so let's go ahead and roll on that then. That is a total of 14. It asks for help with a repair. All right, so this is something. Now we're already out of cryosleep, right? We are in the um, area here. So this ship, what did I say it was? I've forgotten already. Okay, it's a surveyor. Okay, well, and that makes some degree of sense. Given how many planets we have out here that just don't have a starport, I'm guessing there are a lot of surveys going on here. There just isn't a lot of civilization, to be 100% honest. Right, so there's a surveying vessel here that needs some kind of repair. So the question is, right, is our ship in a position to provide any of these repairs? Now it's pretty clear from our party that our party does not have that particular skill set, and it's just not what we have. Like Wilbur, his history is as a fixer. I mean, he has a little computer skill. Um, and if you want something blown up, then Garrett is a good person to ask since he has demolitions. And Hazel's a navigator mostly, is kind of where her skills fall from her years as a merchant. So I don't think we're particularly useful, but I think it might be interesting just to see, uh, do we have this ability on board? Even if our party is not directly involved, this could have some impacts potentially on what happens between these two ships. Okay, so I think I'm going to roll this on the yes no question. It's a pretty simple table. Actually, this is very similar. The system here is very similar to um, the made uppy namey generator, which I think I've talked about in a or emulator, made uppy namey emulator because it's Mune, M-U-N-E. All right, so let's see. Three, no but. Okay, so that is we don't actually have the expertise or perhaps the we don't have the expertise or the equipment. So there's something in there that we're missing. Perhaps that's it. That we don't have the expertise. But we do have some spare parts that may be helpful to them that we can provide. And I think that it makes sense for us to say that there is a convention that we would feel some obligation to actually help. There might even be legal obligation to help when there are distress calls. I think that's often the case with this. All right, so the first thing we do, so this is en route to Vizio Tune, or Vazio Tune. I'm going to change the way I pronounce that every single time I say it, just so we're aware. Okay, starship encounter with a surveyor. It needs help with repairs. And that's our ship, provides equipment, but not expertise. Okay, so just have a note then of that having happened. This is not something that we could contribute much to, but it's providing some of the background of what's happening. Okay, so now the question is, right, is our ship actually going to land here? Well, I mean, sensibly, there might be people that were traveling that would want to land here. I mean, that makes some degree of sense. I'm also trying to remember, okay, London is fairly light. Okay, cool. Cool. I was just trying to figure out how large our robot is so that to know whether I'm paying the right amount in terms of cargo space. Turns out I'm overpaying for cargo space because the, the rules according to this campaign style is that uh, if you bring cargo with you, then that is 1,000 credits per ton. It's a displacement ton, and London 47 is only a point 0.1 displacement ton, so I could probably just pay 100 credits for that and be okay. All right, cool. So it's good to know from here on out, so we don't get ripped off like we have been, paying as if he is a passenger in a cryober. Okay, so continuing then along this method. So question is, right, are we going to land or not? I think it makes some sense we would. Um, there might be some people that want to hit the ground here, right? So let's go ahead and say that there is a shuttle or something like that, something relatively small that can actually land. And we're going to spend a week here refueling and that kind of thing because we know the gas giant is here. It's going to take some time for us to process that fuel and all of that. So there's a week here that we're going to be spending. Because there's no starport, it would make sense there would not be a starport encounter. Uh, there's no starport in which to have the encounter. But we do know that there's a settlement here, so there would be some kind of world encounter that would occur. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do this as we're on planet. We're going to be here for a week, which we're going to have to pay for that. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at what the world encounter is going to be. All right, so pull out my random tables. World encounter, here we go. There's also a space station slash outpost slash colony encounter. Looking through these, I think the assumption Yeah, this feels like it's more like you're actually in a spaceport of some kind. So I'm not going to do that one. All right, so let's look at the world encounters. And this is a D66 roll, so I'm going to read left to right. Okay, so 61. You saw it. It's 61. Okay, so 61. A job opportunity comes up. It'll last up to 3 days and pay 1,000 credits plus a D6 times 100. Okay, so plus 200. So it's going to pay 1,200. Roll on the patron tables. Okay, so this is not unlike what we've been doing. We're just rolling to find out how much we're going to get paid, and the answer is 1,200. Now, I'm going to go ahead and rule that that's 1,200 a piece as opposed to 1,200 total, uh, because otherwise we're just definitely behind. We're barely be making enough money just to pay for our lodging here, if that's what it was. I'm also checking the old playing solo classic traveler just to make sure that yeah, okay. So for a limited mission, 800 credits each is what was considered reasonable. So yeah, so it makes sense to me that this is going to be 1,200 each, right? So we offered a job, 1,200 each. And let's go ahead and look at the patron tables. Now, the patron tables here are, as far as I can tell, identical to what I have been using. At the very least, if there is a difference, it's an extremely minor difference. All right, so again, left to right. So 31. So our patron is an assassin. It, okay, well, what does the assassin want us to do? This could actually be quite amusing. 46. The assassin wants us to find a missing ship. Okay, so let's just see if we have an assassin. Wants us to find a missing ship. All right. And finally, 42 for the focus or object. 42 orbital station. All right. So that is the set of elements here for us to put together. All right. Hmm. So I'm thinking about this job. So the assassin probably needs a name. I don't think I've actually interacted with assassins before. We've been them, right? We've not interacted with them. So let's see if we can come up with a name. So again, just my random name generator. Hilariously, when I type rand like just rand in to Google, it's offering me a random animal name generator, a random number generator. But here we go. Okay, all right, generate a name, Milani Judy. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that one down. So Milani Judy is an assassin and patron on CO2. And we'll see how things go. See if we decide to take this job or not. Since they really just want us to find this missing ship. So the question is, why would an assassin be interested in this missing ship? Well, I mean, just because you're an assassin doesn't mean that assassinating is the only thing you do. I mean, so whose ship might? Okay, so one question. This missing ship might possibly have something like valuable on it, and that is why we have an assassin turning um, effectively into a treasure hunter. That's one possibility. I can't rule that out. Another possibility would be that this ship went missing and there is a target on it that, in order to complete their contract, the assassin has to find. Which, dark as that is, it's not something that is outside the realm of the kind of thing we might do, honestly, given previous experience. So, well, I need to bring this. It's Milani Judy, put it right here. So we just need to point Milani the correct direction, in effect, right? So there was a ship they were keeping track of and have lost track of, and they need to find this ship so that they can complete their task. Now, the orbital station being in there, I can't think of a way that would make sense given the context we're in. Because I don't think the tech level is high enough here for it to make sense to say that we're on some kind of orbital station. Um, so I'm just going to take that element and scratch it. I can't immediately think of a way to get that to make sense. So I'm just going to cross that one out, which, hey, my game, I can do what I want. Okay. So there we go. So what we need to do is find this missing ship, which has a target on it. So find the missing ship of Milani's target. I'd like to know more about that target. So what kind of person are they in terms of what kind of role would they have? So let's go ahead and pull this out again. I'm going to roll on the patron table. I fear that can give me some kind of sense. Okay, 23. A belter. All right. Here's the thing. When I think about people who are likely to be targets of assassination, I don't normally think minors. But okay. And I mean, now it could be. Let's go ahead and reinterpret this. So maybe it's not like the blue collar worker. Instead, it's somebody who runs mining operations. Okay, that makes more sense now, right? So this is somebody who perhaps is somewhat wealthy, perhaps has rubbed some people the wrong way with deals they have or haven't struck, that kind of thing. And that makes a great deal more sense, right? So it's a Belter corporation CEO or something like that, right? CEOs can easily rub people the wrong way. So I think that makes a great deal more sense than what I was originally thinking. Right. So we need to find this person, uh, or at least find the ship they're supposed to be on. That's it. Now, should I roll? Let's go ahead and roll to see what kind of ship they're on. Now, the fact that they're missing is interesting to me. Wait a minute. Let's start putting some things together. Here's what I'm thinking. I've already encountered a ship in this system, which probably is not where it's supposed to be. That'd be the surveyor ship that which needed help with repairs. Uh, so I'm going to say it's very possible that might be right the ship that Milani is looking for. I'm not going to rule that out. Um, so what I need to do then, so I know this ship is there. So can we go and investigate that ship, find out right if this particular person is on that ship? That's the question that I want to answer. Okay, so I like that potential angle. Okay, so that's we're just gonna have to sketch out the plan then. So we are going to right take a shuttle right, to this stranded ship. And now that we're here, and who knows, maybe there's somebody here on this planet that might have some expertise that'd be helpful. That's possible. Actually, it's something. Let's find that out. I mean, we could you know kill a bird with one stone and free the other one to fly on their way. That's not at all what that saying is. But oh, you get it. You get it. All right, so let's go ahead and check to see is there somebody here, like of the handful of people that might have some expertise to help them repair their ship. 6 is a yes, and I'm going to suggest that yes, and they are eager to help with that. So we are going to be getting onto a shuttle. Right? We have shared this information, and we found an engineer who is extremely excited, right, about going and helping to repair this ship, this surveyor ship. It being a surveyor ship makes perfect sense as something that at least a relatively high up person in some kind of Belter corporation, mining corporation might want to be on because they're seeking out new prospective places to mine, right? So this makes some degree of sense. I think that this is kind of weaving together in a reasonable way. Now we have to figure out how our skills can come in and potentially affect the plan. Yeah, so this is how planning works. It's a little different set. So first thing is to decide on the difficulty of the plan. So is this plan something where quite a few things could go wrong, where most eventualities are catered for, or where almost nothing can go wrong? Uh, I mean, this seems fairly straightforward. We're just going up to the ship and seeing if this person happens to be on it. Uh, I think that's it. We just want to confirm this visually. So I think there's not really much here that can go wrong. So I'm going to say this is a 6 plus. So it's a foolproof. I naturally there are always some things that can go wrong with space travel because it's space travel. But, okay, so that's what I'm going to say. So our plan here is we're going to visit the surveyor ship. Um, with that, so we're visiting the surveyor ship. I'm going to say this is a 6 plus. All right, to see if we can do that. And then potential bonuses that can go into this. So there are a few things that can happen. So one thing, I'm going to actually apply this very much like we did with the um, playing Classic Traveler solo, because you have the possibilities, if you have characters that have relevant skills, you can just add plus ones. I'm going to make them make a successful skill check for that in order to get the plus one. Right, so going through each of them. So what is Wilbur going to do? So I think Wilbur, his most relevant skill, I think, would be carousing potentially. Uh, Garrett is not particularly useful here in terms of his specific skills. And Hazel also carousing. The problem is we have two people that have both like a level of carousing, a level of broker each, or we need to do trading is what it comes down to. That's once we get a ship, I think that makes sense to do. There are rules in solo for having a process by which you can engage in speculative um, buying up and selling speculative cargo, even if you don't have a ship. The problem, of course, is that transporting it is so expensive that you're not going to make any money, even if you have like perfect rolls. Uh, that's actually what you would need to break even. So I'm not going to do that. All right. So instead, we're focusing on this right now. Professor, don't keep getting excited about the new shiny thing. All right. So um, one thing Wilbur could do, right? Like I'm just looking melee combat, gun combat, navigation, survival. I'm going to make the assumption there's a pilot with this shuttle, right? Potentially. Um, and also none of us have piloting, so there's a pilot. So I think navigation is well, actually navigation might be useful. Let's go ahead and put Hazel on navigation as we often would. All right, so she's on navigation. Wilbur's job will be when we get there. He's going to do the carousing to find out if we have the right person here on this ship. And then let's put Garrett in the um, organizing capacity. Have him use his leader skills potentially. Potentially. All right. So now they're working together. Now this is an interesting thing. So I have a few elements that are going to have to go on here. So one thing that I want to do first, let's go ahead and roll for each of them. All right. What's that die? Okay. So first thing, Hazel, she gets a +3 on this, and that is a 7. Failed the navigation roll. Okay, this is not looking good so far. Okay. So one problem might be that we weren't actually like on the bridge when we encountered the survey ship. We just kind of know that it's out there somewhere. Might be why the now barely it would barely miss, but it did miss. Next one. So I rolled a total of 7 plus Wilbur's 1 for carousing. Right, so the carousing would succeed. What about Garrett's leadership? 8 plus 1, that would also be a 9, so that one also kind of barely succeeds. Okay. Right. Now we can actually interpret these roles. That's something that is available here on the reference sheet. So our failure was a no but, right? So that is there is some kind of positive twist in what happened here. All right, so that's good. That's good. So what is that twist? It's a no but. I think okay. No, but well, no, that'd make it more of a yes, but I was just thinking, well, maybe I made it there, but it took more time than expected, or something like that. No, that's not what's happening here. Um, no, because that would be a yes, but right. So yes, we made it. Yes, the navigation worked, but no, I think no, but is that our pilot could take over, right? So they're just not impressed with us. I think that might be it. Then we have when we get there, Wilbur does his carousing and is successful in finding out whether or not the person is there. We need to roll to find out whether or not the person is there. I think it's likely, so I'm going to go ahead and roll two, take the higher one. Four is a yes, but technically, but I don't. I'm just going to ignore the but on that one, right? So this is a plain yes or no. Are they on the ship or are they not? The answer is yes. So, and then Garrett with his leadership coming in, that is that he's playing a good organizing role. Perhaps he's the one. Actually, this makes some degree of sense. He's the one that said, "Okay, Hazel, this we're not finding it. Maybe we should let somebody else take over." So there's this amount of persuasion that he has to do in order for that to work. Now, one of the things that also is included in the new tool that I'm using is this idea of interactions, right? So you create interactions in a number of possible cases. For example, if two characters are working together, you would roll to find out what their relationship is like. You can also roll if they're in opposition to each other or if there's a stressful situation, what kind of reactions we have. You also, if things are dull for a while, that can create stress, right? So that is another case where you might want to roll reactions. It's often encouraged that if you're going through hyperspace that you have reactions. Now, in our case, like I said before, we're in hypersleep, we're probably not rolling reactions. But right now, we're not in hypersleep. We are, in fact, traveling to the surveyor's ship, and we have not really defined the relationship very well between Hazel and Wilbur. So therefore, we're going to roll on the relationship table. So again, I'm going to roll left. It's a D66 table. I'm going to read left to right. All right, which the green die really snuck in there. So 35. So these are old friends. Old in these days, ex friends. Okay. So Wilbur and Hazel have known each other for quite some time, is what we've just learned. Okay, so that's kind of interesting to me, because they don't have very similar backgrounds whatsoever. Hazel comes from a fairly nice planet, and Garrett, I thought Wilbur and Garrett was who I was rolling for. No, Hazel and Garrett is who I was rolling for. So Hazel and Garrett, right? So they're old nowadays ex-friends. So I'm trying to think of what their background is like and how this might potentially impact them. After all, because the reason that I decided to chart Garrett with Hazel is that he's not having to talk her out of trying to persistently try to do this. So what I'm imagining here, there might actually be a reaction because this could be some form of confrontation happening between the two of them. If they have like a history and where they don't necessarily, it's not all good, right? There is a history there uh, where there's tension there between the two of them. So I think maybe what we're going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and just because I want to try it, is do the confrontation. So I'm going to do a confrontation roll and see what happens with that. So a confrontation occurs between these two characters. One's trying to convince the other. It's an 8+ roll. Uh, and here is what we need to check. We need to check one, the social standing is very important in this one. All right. And it would be a diplomat or persuade skill, which we do not have. Okay, so social standing, it's 11 for Hazel, 9 for Garrett, which means the convincer has a lower social standing skill. This is going to be a -1 in this roll. Plus, he doesn't actually have, although I'm letting him use leader here because it is relevant to a group. even if he's not trying to convince a group. So I think I'm going to allow those to cancel. So it's just a plain roll, 8 plus, he succeeds. It's the worst possible outcome. Okay, so she is not convinced. That means that I would say she has to be forcibly like removed, right, from trying to perform this navigation. She's being actually quite disruptive as far as that goes. So actually, let's go ahead and roll that one in terms of reactions, because I can see where there could be potentially a bad reaction here. Let's go ahead and roll. This would be an 8 plus to avoid a bad reaction. We got a 7, so we do not avoid a bad reaction. A d6 tells us her reaction is argument with another character. This makes perfect sense. All right, so the two of them are arguing with each other. So okay, so what happens in this, right, is that Garrett is trying to convince Hazel to just like let the pilot navigate. Now we know that he will eventually succeed at this because they must make it to the to the um to the ship, right? Okay, so to let her navigate, no, not her navigate, let the pilot navigate. She refuses, and they fight. Not physically, but they argue substantially. It's described as perhaps it's a culmination of a period of rivalry or jealousy, or based on a grudge. And okay, so they argue. So now we've learned that there is this tension here between Hazel and Garrett, and it seems to be built on some kind of old experience. They were friends at one point in time in the past, with very different backgrounds, but somehow they connected with each other and had perhaps a friendship. Maybe we know that Hazel would have traveled around a lot as a merchant. She might have possibly been interacting somewhat with um, Garrett's home planet, right, providing various necessities and the like. Um, since he's kind of a freedom fighter type on that planet, this is very possible. So I like that direction. So I think that that's what I'm going to say. It happened. That's kind of where their background was. But then there's also some conflict. I suspect because as a merchant, she's trading with everybody that would create the potential, right, for some um, conflict here. Now, so I think that yeah, so they're willing to work together. They consider each other friends in some sense, but there's definitely some unresolved tension from their backgrounds, and now Garrett, in effect, mansplaining to Hazel that she needs to let somebody else do this thing, which happens to be true in this case. Um, but that's what has happened. All right. Oh, I forgot to determine the danger level. I'm going to say that this is. Let's go ahead and say that this is dangerous, just because yeah, that's kind of fun. All right. So danger level. So that's our plan. I decided it was foolproof. We decided it's dangerous, which means then the consequence could in fact involve death or injury for somebody. Okay. So now that we've gotten through all this, we need to roll to resolve the scene to see are we actually successful on the whole for this. So it's a 2d6. It needs to be equal to 6. I get a +2 on this one because of the two successful rolls. Okay, so odds are pretty good on this. The 6, which 6 is enough, right? But +2 more, 8. So we did succeed. Uh, it's just kind of a simple success as far as that goes. Okay. The next thing we need to do is determine if there's a consequence. So the way this works, you roll a 2d6. If the plan was a success, and it was, I get a +2 on it. And then again, I compare this. Now I don't add the other modifier. It's just this, success or not. +2 is a 9. Okay, so as long as that is at least as high as the original required roll, which in our case was a 6, it was, then there is no negative consequence we have to worry about. So no negative consequence on this one. So our plan did in fact succeed. We didn't have anybody get hurt or injured or any kind of negative consequence as far as that went. So I'm going to say that that means that yes, we found. So yes, we found the target, this belter, on the ship. Now here's an interesting question. Right, so we also happened to also brought the expertise that they needed to fix the ship. So the question is, now we're going to get back there, we're going to get paid, but will the assassin have time, right, to take this person out before the ship leaves the system? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So let's try it. All right, so here we go. Do they have time? I'm gonna say it's 50-50. So let's just go ahead and roll this. Two. It's a plain no. They do not have time. Right? So this is interesting. Right? So what happened? So we found the builder CEO on the ship, but the ship was repaired and left system before, right? Milani could finish her contract. I, s- I'm gonna just treat Milani as because I think of Melania, right? So let's just say her. Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Okay. Right. So our assassin did not, in fact, succeed, but nonetheless, we got paid. So what do we care? All right. So that means, so the next thing would be, I mean, okay, so we are we need to finish up our week here. So tallying up all of our money, we just made 1,200 apiece. We had to pay, right, for our accommodations here, which assuming that we're going to stay in reasonable accommodations, that's 350 credits apiece. So that comes to what we each made 850, but then we have to pay for passage to the next space, which is going to be 1,000 piece. We're going to pay 150 net a piece for each of us, plus an extra 100 right for the robot. So that means down 250 for Wilbur, because it's his robot and he's also the one that carries the most cash. And then down 150 for everybody else. That's not too bad. So even if we can't get any kind of jobs on the way anymore. I think that we actually have enough money that we can get all the way to Masoyama without a problem. Okay, cool. That's nice. Now, next thing we need to do. Uh, so we spent a week here on this world. Um, because no crime happened, I'm going to say we didn't have to worry about any running with the law. We didn't actually do anything illegal. We just went up and looked to see if somebody was on a ship and found they were. And then they ended up not dying. So, you know, so jumping from world to world is the next step. So we would have to roll on a starport encounter table, except there's no starport. Sort out the cost. We did. We already paid that. Roll on the starship encounters table. So as we are leaving the system, what kind of encounter might we have? Again, we are in a frontier system. Pull that up. Where's that frontier system? There we go. So again, at a -1, a 6 minus 1 is a 5. That means we don't actually have a starship encounter here. We're far enough out that there just aren't very many starships. Then we roll on the passenger ship events table for an event and make a reaction roll for the group during subspace. How are they feeling about one another? So the thing is, we're in cryosleep. So I kind of still want there to be something that happens while we're in cryosleep that could potentially interrupt things. So let's find out what happens. Right, so 21, right, would be this, and that says passenger is an inspector for the government who has authorized a tour of the ship. So all of that happens while we sleep. That doesn't sound like it would necessarily be anything that would create problems for us. We're not transporting anything illegal in terms of cargo or anything like that. So I think that we're okay as far as that goes. So I'm not going to bother writing that one down. Then we enter the new system. Okay, but I'm going to wait for entering the new system for next time. So that is a much longer episode than I typically do for this series, but here we are. Right. So I kind of like some of these new tools. I think it's going to take some time for me to figure out how to incorporate them the way that I would like, but I enjoy it. All right, so for right now, this is Prof E signing off.